a place, there is a moment, there is a feeling and escape from your ordinary way. There is a place, there is a time, there is a reason to make today an extraordinary day. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. There's a world for you to see, paradise to set you free. Look what you're missing, look what you're missing. Come along, I'll take you there, an adventure we can share. There is a place.
So, Mr. Elwood, you have been going on about a surprise all week already. So just tell me.
Have some patience, son. All is about to be revealed.
No, I think you're full of it. So the next question would be, knowing you, what do you need help with at home?
No trust.
No.
I don't need help with anything at home, Henk. So open the garage door and feast your eyes.
I don't know, man.
So what do you think?
I think those are going to get really stuffed going up Oberg Pass tomorrow. That's what I think.
Well, there's been a small change of plan. We're not going up Oberg Pass tomorrow. I'm taking you for an ostrich steak in Oudtshoorn by road.
By road? You mean the black stuff only?
That's right. You see, I've decided we can still have an adventure on these bikes. We just have to go out and find the best 10% of the 10% of tarred roads in this province.
Okay, so which way are we going?
Well, we're going to explore the longest wine route in the world. We're also going to get to ride some of the most fantastic tar passes the Cape has to offer. But you seriously don't look convinced yet, Mr. Kotsia.
No.
So I'll make a small bet with you.
Okay.
In 4 days' time, if you can convince me that you really didn't have fun on these two bikes, I'll wash all of those bikes. However, if there's even an inkling that you did have some fun, then you get to wash all of those bikes.
That sounds fair. So where do we start then?
I'm going to meet you tomorrow on the rolling curves of the Toitskloof Pass above Paarl. I've got something there I want to show you. You know, to make sure that your weekend starts off having fun.
Oi, what are you doing?
What?
What are you doing?
I'm listening to the Sean Jacobs band.
Sean Jacobs?
Good homegrown South African music, and also very nice to ride motorcycles with.
So you're using your iPod and Bluetooth?
No, I'm using my phone and my Bluetooth.
Bluetooth? Designed or at least named after a famous dentist, I reckon.
No, named after a famous Viking, in fact.
Viking?
You know what, Henk, I'm not going to try and explain this to you. So let's cut to something that we filmed a while ago when we visited Janet Stewart at Bike to Bike in Cape Town, where she explained what Bluetooth is, what headsets are available, and what they can do.
Well, actually, Warren, you are right. The name Bluetooth was borrowed from a 10th century Viking king. His name was King Erik Bluetooth of Denmark. Bluetooth technology enables safe, easy, quick and secure transfer of information across devices without the need for any cables. So what exactly is a Bluetooth headset? A Bluetooth headset is a small device that attaches to the side of your helmet. Inside your helmet you have two earpieces and a microphone. It's easy to install and it doesn't damage your helmet in any way. A unit will allow you to speak to another rider or another passenger while you're on your motorbike and have an intercom conversation. It can even enable you to pair up to your cell phone, to your GPS and to your iPod to listen to music. When we first started selling Bluetooth headsets 10 years ago, they were very basic. They consisted of only one earpiece and they could only do a range of about 100 meters. You couldn't listen to music at all and you could only talk to one other person. Since then, Bluetooth technology has improved dramatically. We now have over 25 different types of headsets that perform multiple uses. Some of the new units even have a video camera embedded in them. This uses Bluetooth version 4 and it allows you to control the device with your voice commands. You can basically record footage and have a four-way conversation with your friends at the same time. Now it might seem like a very overwhelming decision to make about which is the right Bluetooth headset for me. There are a lot of different options out there. I think important things to consider when making your decision are things like, how long is the warranty? Are there spare parts and accessories available in South Africa? Does the bracket fit safely and securely onto my helmet? And most importantly of all, if you wear a neck brace, does the unit get in the way when you turn your head? My advice to you would be, before you make a decision, consult a specialist and make sure that you are buying the right product for your needs.
So while the N1 highway, which includes the Toitskloof Pass and the tunnel, are today the main corridor to the north, it wasn't always like that. As we mentioned in episode 3, that accolade for many years belonged to the Great North Road, which went via Ceres and Sutherland.
In fact, the Toitskloof wasn't even second on the list. It was only in 1940 that an agreement was reached that a new road over these mountains would be more suitable. Then the newest road through Wellington and over Bains.
Many years before, Andrew Bain and Charles Mitchell had turned down the idea of building a road over to Toitskloof, as their survey showed that the cost would be too excessive. As with all the passes around the Cape, the first transits were made by wild animals and Khoi tribesmen. History shows us that there were several attempts made by various people through the decades to build a road over these rugged and plunging mountains. Some partly successful, some not. And it wasn't until 1941, when work started under the direction of the Roads Department using some 500 odd Italian prisoners of war, that the road we know today began to take shape. The prisoners of war worked on the project until repatriation at the end of the war in 1945. The Hugenot Tunnel was opened in 1988, and besides cutting 11 kilometers off the original journey, is also the largest curved structure in South Africa. The Toitskloof Pass is 48 kilometers long, scales 820 meters in height, and is named after Francois du Toit, a 17th century Huguenot pioneer who settled in the foothills of the mountains.
The tunnel is pretty impressive, but when there's an alternate mountain pass available and you have a motorcycle, well, that's one less decision you have to make on a trip.
And to finish off our little piece on the Toitskloof Pass, here is the memorial built by the Italians to commemorate the time of South Africa, their part in the building of the pass, and the extraordinary bond developed between themselves and the citizens of Paarl. All in all, a remarkable story.
And from here we head to Rawsonville, out the back of the little town, through over Hicks, onto the R60, Robertson, Ashton, off onto the R62 through Country into Montague. There we're going to refuel, have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to take you to see a rather unique little museum. Let's not waste any more time. Mountain passes await.
Country is a poort through the Langeberg between Ashton and Montague on the R62. It was named after the Khoi chiefdom that existed in this area around the 17th century. The road through the poort, following the course of the Kinga River, was constructed by Thomas Bain. Work started in 1873 and was completed in 1877, finally giving farmers direct access to the markets in the Cape, 150 years after the first farms were handed out. Before this, they would either have to use the Hex Pass, 50 kilometers to the west, or the Trudeau Pass, an equal distance to the east. Country Gorge consists almost entirely of folded sandstone, and the formations were deposited and folded over 500 million years ago. So they've been around for a while.
So this is just kind of interesting. Up there, above the tunnel, is an old English fort. Now I've seen some pictures of forts in pretty strange places before, but this one has to rank right up there with the strangest of them.
Well, it was built by the British, so, what do you expect?
Mr. Coetzee, you carry on, because all the smiley, laughy face means to me is that you're enjoying yourself.
The fort was constructed in 1899 during the Second Anglo-Boer War and was garrisoned by a company of the Gordon Highlanders who were instrumental in causing the Boers to avoid Montague.
The one thing that Henk and I discuss often are the first explorers that came through here, or anywhere in fact. We ride these roads and passes and barely spare a thought for the folks that were instrumental in making our present-day journeys a little easier.
Now, can you imagine coming through here on an ox wagon with no roads, having to cross the river several times, probably having to dismantle it to carry it over and around national obstacles? It must have taken a special breed of man to keep going forward. It's no wonder that road builders like Andrew Geddes Bain, his son Thomas and many others were so respected and appreciated then, and are still so venerated today.
So next time you're flying over a pass, give a few seconds to the people who toiled for months and years so that you could have a few minutes of fun on your motorcycle. Right, next stop, Montague, some petrol, some coffee, and then a rather unique little museum with a very unique little garden.
The little town of Montague was founded in 1851 and was named after Colonial Secretary John Montague. It has one of the highest numbers of national monuments in a town, with 23 Cape Dutch buildings being declared as such. The main economic activity in this area is mixed farming. The oldest homestead in town, your Bear House, is now a museum. And besides the hundreds of valuable historical items, it also has an indigenous medicinal plant garden behind it. Over the last few decades, the museum has been researching and recording the traditional uses of medicinal plants, passed down by the Khoikhoi, San and settler farmers from Europe and the Cape Colony, which makes for some pretty interesting investigation.
Now, I'm a trained level 2 first aider, and I did the course because I wanted to be able to assist should the worst happen and one of us was involved in a motorcycle accident or something similar. Now, while I find how our forefathers used plants to treat various medical ailments absolutely fascinating, they can never replace modern day medicine and first aid practices. So let's have a look at something we filmed when we visited with Peter O'Hanlon from the NSRI, where he gave us some advice on what we should be carrying on the bike to treat almost any kind of medical emergency.
I'm Peter O'Hanlon, and we're here at Big Bay Life Saving Club, where many of our lifeguards ride their own motorcycles. So we thought this would be a good venue to talk about what they do best, save lives. We all know that when there's an emergency on the beach, we call a lifeguard. And we call a lifeguard because they have the knowledge, they've had all the training, and they have all the equipment. Unfortunately, when we're riding motorcycles off-road, away from civilization, we don't have the luxury of all that expertise and all that equipment. We need to be lifesavers ourselves, and the action that we take can save lives, can affect the recovery of that person, and can affect the quality of life of that rider. To do this, we need two things. We need knowledge and we need equipment, and it's very easy to get both. We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we say to ourselves later, if only I could have helped, because we can. We need a first aid kit, which we can get packed to suit the purpose exactly for off-road riding, and we need first aid training, which almost any emergency services organization provides. We're going to be dealing with fractures, sprains, bruises, cuts, and in the worst case, possibly CPR. So we're going to put together a first aid kit, which has bandages, lots of bandages, splints, antiseptics to clean wounds, Band-Aid, gauze, scissors, space blankets, and a pen and paper to record the sequence of events from the incident until the paramedic arrives, so that we can tell him what the condition of the patient is and whether it's deteriorating or improving. Generally, we're dealing with trauma, not ailments, so we don't have a first aid bag full of medication. When we're traveling through Africa, we're likely to get a tummy bug or a headache, so we do carry some medication. However, we're not allowed to dispense, so those medications are for our own use. An important word of advice, never remove the helmet. A patient who's come off the motorcycle needs that helmet to stabilize his spine, and you don't know what's happening inside the helmet, so leave it on until the paramedic gets there. Now, a final word about the first aid kit. The first thing you should take out of that kit are your gloves, because you need to protect yourself first against body fluids. And finally, a word to ride leaders. Know your group. If you've got riders who have a pre-existing medical condition, find out about it and make sure they take their medication with them, because you're not going to have it in your medical aid kit. So my advice to anyone who's a serious rider, go and do a first aid course. It'll stand you in good stead and you won't be sorry.
Right, from here we get onto the R62 proper. Next stop, Barrydale, and some famous chicken pie at the Country Bumpkin, the most biker-friendly restaurant I know of.
But before we get there, I have a special treat planned. We're going to get to ride what is, for me, the most spectacular mountain pass in the Cape. And we're going to get to ride it twice.
Twice?
Yep.
Why?
Because we have motorcycles, and because we can, and because I really do want you to have a lot of fun.
Okay, all of those sounds like pretty good arguments. I'm right behind you.
It's not often that we get to ride a fantastic mountain pass like this twice in one day, but the fact is our journey keeps us pegged to the R62, so if we want to see it, we don't really have a choice. We're not really complaining though, because as we've said before, even though it's one of the Cape's flattest passes, it's got to be the most stunning.
But before we take off and enjoy the pass, let's just have a look at some riding tips for tar, focusing somewhat on the corners. And remember, although we're riding road bikes this trip, the information we're about to give you is applicable to all motorcycles. And the first technique to acquaint yourself with is counter steering. Not such a big thing, because if you're already riding a motorcycle, well, then you're already doing it. And that is gently pushing the bars to the left if you want to go right, and vice versa.
Strange but true. To get a feel for what happens when you consciously initiate a turn by gently pushing on the bars in the opposite direction of which you want to go, choose a short, straight piece of road. You don't even have to go very fast. Just go down it and gently push on the bars. Don't pull, just gently push and see what happens. And once you've got your head around that, the next thing you want to look at is getting yourself set up before the corner. So do your braking, get your speed under control, and get your gear selection right before you tip it into the corner.
As you tip the bike in, look through the corner and ahead to where you want to go. Do not look down or get target fixation on something on the side. Remember that old saying, you go where you look.
Also remember, when you are leant over in a corner, your tyres have much less traction than normal. So if you do have to brake deep in the corner, you need to be gentle, almost sensitive with the brakes. In fact, if you see you're starting to run out of road a little bit, try and apply more counter steer as opposed to harsh braking when you're leant over on the side of the tyre.
Now when you reach the apex of the corner, gently accelerate and power through. Remember, the same applies to acceleration. Your rear tyre has less traction, so you want to try and avoid that harsh acceleration.
Now, accidents are caused by many things. Fatigue, alcohol, nervousness, fear, target fixation, the list goes on. But one of the usual contributing factors to many accidents is ego. So manage that risk by knowing your limit, and don't let anybody or anything make you ride past that limit. How did Stoner say to Rossi? Your ambition outweighed your talent. That means it happens to the best. Don't let it happen to you.
If there are faster guys than you, so what? Remember, it's about your experience, not theirs. And having said that, let's go and enjoy our experience of riding through here. And did we mention the bonus of coming back this way as well?
Yep, this is a mountain pass to truly be enjoyed. There are numerous areas like this where you can pull off and admire the magnificent fynbos, the mountain views, the sheer cliffs down to the river below, and in fact the beauty of the road itself. So allow yourself some time to appreciate it all as you journey through here.
The Trudeau Pass follows the Buffeljagts River and is perhaps one of the few passes in the Cape which wasn't started by the animal kingdom. The idea for a pass through the Toitskloof, also known as the Poort of the Women in the old Khoikhoi language, came from the settlers themselves, in an effort to shorten the journey from the Little Karoo to the Swellendam side of the Langeberg. Once again, we see the great putbouwer Thomas Bain's name heading up the project. We also learned that convict labour was used to build the road. Work commenced in 1868 and the pass was finally opened in 1873. It was later necessary to reconstruct a large part of the road due to various floods, and the road was finally completely reconstructed in 1979. Originally named Southie Pass, this name never caught on with the locals, and that's why we still know it as the Trudeau Pass today. The region Barrydale is situated in what was originally known as the Kannaland, and although it forms part of the Little Karoo as we know it today, if one looks at the geographical, geological and scenic qualities of the area, you will soon realize it has unique features all of its own. In the 1700s, the settlers of the Cape Colony began searching for new land to farm. The fertile valley where Barrydale is situated today suited all their needs, except getting there, as the Trudeau Poort was difficult to navigate for a wagon. Which leads us back to the story of the Trudeau Pass and the founding of Barrydale in 1880.
The little town was named after James Barry, an early settler who was an agent, a trader, an auctioneer and a deputy sheriff, and also the head of the Barry Empire in the 1840s and 50s. Now with the collapse of the empire Barry built, one William Sterner, who arrived as a smose, became Barrydale's financial success story, owning the general dealer, the hotel, the drapers, the shoemaker and the gunsmiths.
Today Barrydale has a special place in many people's hearts as the perfect getaway from the stresses of city life. And if you're a biker staying over in Barrydale, or in fact just moving through on the R62 and you're hungry, Well, there's only one place that comes to mind, and that's the Country Bumpkin.
The Country Bumpkin opened its doors to the public in November 1994. Derek de Villiers, the owner, saw that there were no facilities in the area open to tourists and the locals on Sundays, and decided to open the first 7-day-a-week eatery to serve those travelling the Route 62. They are probably most famous for their Sunday roast, and they are motorcycle friendly.
I worked in Cape Town as a bank manager for 25 years, and then came up here 21 years ago and started this tiny little tea room. And biking started to take off on Route 62, like 66, and so it was marketed on the same sort of lines. And today bikers get free coffee, free tea. In the last 20 years, Barrydale has really grown. It's become a good spot for restaurants. We've got a couple of restaurants up the road and down the road, which is great for the town itself. Sunday lunch definitely are the roast. We do a starter, which is a soup or one of the other starters. Then we do roast lamb, roast pork, crackling, roast chicken, 13 vegetables, 3 sauces, a glass of muscadel, which all the bikers get as well.
Now, the one thing that comes to mind when traveling by motorcycle is, where do I park my bike at night? Now, this is not usually a problem when you're out in the sticks, but it's something that can be of concern in the, well, let's call them urban areas.
Just behind the Country Bumpkin is the bike stop. Now, it's a typical Karoo self-catering cottage that sleeps 10, and it really does have everything you need for a comfortable and relaxing stay in this delightful little village. It also boasts safe off-the-street parking for your motorcycle, or in fact any other vehicle that you may find yourself traveling in.
So, self-catering, eh? That means you're making brekkies tomorrow.
Henk, if breakfast will make you happy, breakfast there will be. Maybe not made by these hands, but I'll make sure that you get fed. Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait a whole week for your breakfast because, well, we're out of time. But make sure you tune in next week to see how the ostrich feather bankrupted thousands. Until then,
Ride safe.
look after yourselves.
Look what you've been saying. Look what you've been saying. Come along, I'll take you there. An adventure we can share. There is a place. There is a moment. There is a feeling and escape from your ordinary way. There